Okay, in this video we're going to take a look at simultaneous equations where one is linear and the other is non-linear. Now I suppose it's important to start off by saying what is the difference between a linear and a non-linear equation. Well, the linear equation is what you could call the normal looking equation. It just has the letter x and the letter y in it. Whereas the nonlinear equation, either the x is squared or the y is squared, or they're both squared, as in the case of this example, or there is an xy in it. So we don't have that in this question, but it could be in another question. So there's our linear and nonlinear equation, with the nonlinear one up here and the linear one down here. And effectively we have to find what x and y is. Okay, so how do we go about doing that? Well, I suppose the first thing you do really is identify which is which is the linear and which is the nonlinear. Now we've just done that. The next step to do is we have to get one of the letters on its own. Okay, in the linear equation. So get one of them on its own. Now at the minute, both of them, both the x and the y, are on the same side. We need to get one of them on its own. So let's see us doing. That's the equation there. To get x on its own, we're just going to move this y over to the other side. And we did that down here. And you see now that x is now on its own. I could just as easily have gotten y on its own. I chose to get x on its own. And that's okay. So we've gotten x on its own. So we've done the first step. Okay. So let's see now what we can do next. What's the second step? We're going to sub this in to the nonlinear equation. So whatever it is that we got when we got x on its own, so we got 3 minus y, we're going to sub that in to the nonlinear equation up here, this nonlinear equation. And instead of using the letter x in the nonlinear equation, we're going to put in this instead of it. We're going to put in 3 minus y instead of it. So this is probably the most difficult part of these questions, so take your time when you're doing them. So here it is beginning here, step 2. Okay, so this is the nonlinear equation. I've just written it down. I've highlighted the x because this is what I'm going to take out now. And I'm going to put this in instead of it. So you see it gone in there. Instead of saying x squared, I'm now saying 3 minus y squared. Now what do I have to do? Now I have to actually multiply this out. And remember that to square something means to multiply by itself. So when I say 3 minus y squared, it means to multiply by itself. So I've written the bracket twice. So 3 minus y squared, which is here, we're squaring it, it means multiply by itself. So I put 2 of them down. Of course, the squared is now gone because we are squaring it, so we don't need to write that anymore. Now, we need to know how to actually do this. So this is another little skill. We need to know how to multiply 2 brackets by each other when there's 2 things, 1, 2, in each bracket. So you take the first thing out. There it is there. And you put it beside the second bracket. And you take the second thing out, including the sign that's in front of it. There it is there. And you put that beside the second bracket. Okay, now you actually start to multiply. So we have to multiply in here, and we have to multiply in here, and we have to multiply in here, and we have to multiply in here. And that's what this line has. So 3 by 3 is 9, 3 by minus y is minus 3y, minus y by 3 is minus 3y, and minus y by minus y, minus by minus is a plus, and you end up with y squared. So now we've done all the multiplying. And that's step 3 done. So what's next? We have to tidy it up and we have to get it into quadratic form. So quadratic form is when you have the x squareds followed by the y's followed by the number, and you put it equal to 0. Or in our case, the y squareds followed by the y's followed by the number, and you put it equal to 0. So that's what you call quadratic order. And at the minute, this is looking a little bit messier. So the first thing I suppose we could do is we just move everything onto the left. So that 5 can come over. Here it is here. It's changed to a -5. Now we begin to tidy everything up. So we're going to put the y squareds. We're going to add them together. We're going to put the y's together. And notice how no signs changed here. They're still minus because I didn't move them over the equal sign. I'm just putting them side by side. And then I'm going to put the, I don't want to use green for that, use a different color, I'll use blue. And put the numbers with each other, so that 9 goes with, and when I move that 5 over, it changed to a -5. So y squared plus y squared is 2y squared. And minus 3y minus another 3y is minus 6y. There's no more multiplying now, remember, we're just putting like terms together. And 9 take away 5 is 4. And we have it all equal to 0. Now that's quadratic order. And when you get down to this point, you've done the bulk of the work. What's next? We have to use the minus b formula to get 2 answers. So on this little equation that we've got, in this little quadratic equation here, we're going to use the minus b formula. Minus b formula. So what is a in this equation that we have created here? Let's zoom in here. A is the number in front of the squared part. So A is 2. B is the number in front of just the normal letter part. So it's -6. And C is 4. So let's fill it in to this minus B formula that I've written down here. Okay, what goes here? B. What's B? B is -6. In here is another B, so we need to go -6 again. And here is A, which is 2, and C is 4, and down here is A as well, and A is 2. Now we type all that into the calculator. The first time we type it in, we use the plus, and the second time we use the minus, or whatever. But we get 2 different answers that way, by using a plus and by using a minus. So when you type it in the first time, you get 2, and when you type it in the second time, you get 1. So there's our 2 y answers. Now just be careful. Why am I using the letter y? Okay, because in the logbook, the minus b formula is actually, it says x. So I'm using the letter y because that's the letter that's in the equation we have. Look at the y's. That's what I'm solving first of all. So that's why I'm saying y is equal to. So don't make the mistake of saying x is equal to there. So now that I have that, now that I have 2 answers for y, I'll do my last little step, where I sub each answer into the linear equation to get 2 more answers. So the linear equation, remember way back at the start of the question up here, this equation here, we only ever use it twice in these questions. We use it for the first step, where we get a letter on its own, and then we use it at the very end to sub our 2 answers into. So we use it at the start and at the very end. So there's the linear equation there. I've just written it down. Now I found out that y is equal to 2. So I'm going to sub in 2 where y is. So that would mean x is equal to 3 minus 2. So that means that x is equal to 1. And I also found out over here that y is equal to 1. So I write my linear equation again. And where y is, I'm going to put in 1. So that means that x is equal to 3 minus 1. So x is equal to 2. And there's my 4 answers. Okay, because you always get 4 answers in these questions. There and there. And then we've got 2 x answers as well. And then if you really want it to be good, you put them into brackets. So let me delete this more questions here. And take this up a little bit. So we say bracket, bracket, and we put bracket, bracket. With that x coordinate, which is 1, we had that y coordinate, which is 2. And with that x coordinate, which is 2, we had that y coordinate, which is 1. And that's it solved. Now's the time for you to try a couple of them. And let's see what we can do. You can try that question there. So pause the video now and try and attempt that question. And then when you've tried it, you can press play and we'll work through the answer together. But try and do it before that and see if you can get it. Okay, pause the video now. Okay, so hopefully you pause the video. I'm going to keep going. First thing, remember, is identify which is your linear. There's my linear there. And then identify which is your non-linear. That's the non-linear one up here. And remember what step 1 is. Step 1 is to get one of the letters on its own in the linear equation, which is this one down here. So we have to get one of the letters on its own. So that should be straightforward enough. Let's just bring the y over. So it'll change to 4 plus y. And of course I chose to do that because it's just easier. Had I tried to get the y on its own, I would have ended up with a minus y equals 4 minus x, and then I'd have to bring the minus over, and it was just more awkward. You always do whatever's easiest. So there's step 1 done. Now step 2 is I'm going to have to sub this in for x in my nonlinear equation. What's my nonlinear equation? It's x squared plus y squared equals 10. And I'm no longer going to use that x. I'm going to use that instead of it. So I'm going to put brackets around it, and into those brackets, so nothing else in the equation changes, into those brackets I'm going to put 4 plus y. Now I have to multiply these out because that's what squared is. It multiplies by itself. So 4 plus y by 4 plus y. Nothing else in the equation changes. Break up the bracket, so the first thing beside the second bracket, and then the second thing, including the sign that's in front of it, beside the second bracket. Oh, that's a plus. Equals 10. Multiply out now. We have to actually multiply in and in and in and in. Okay, so 4 by 4 is 16. Oops. 4 by y is 4y. Y by 4 is 4y. And y by y is y squared. There's still that plus y squared, and there's still that 10. Now, can you remember, I have to get it into quadratic order. So at the minute, I've got these y squareds. I'm going to put them first, because in quadratic order, the squared part always comes first. I've got these y's. I'm going to put those together. And I've got these numbers. I'm going to put those together. I suppose to do it right, we have to move this over, everything onto the left-hand side to begin with. So I've got y squared plus 4y plus 4y plus 16, and it's going to be a minus 10 when I move that over. What does that give me when I tidy it up? Well, I've got 2 y squareds. I've got 8 y's, and I've got 6. Now I have it in quadratic order. My A is that, my B is that, and my C is that. I'm going to use those for the minus B formula. So A equals 2, B equals 8, and C equals 6. I'm going to fill those in to this formula here, minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. What's that going to look like? It's going to look like this. Type it into the calculator using a plus. Type it in using a minus. What letter are we using? We're talking about y's because that's what's in our equation. So I'm going to say y equals to get one answer, and I'm going to have y equals over here for my other answer. So when I typed it in, I get those two answers, minus 1 and minus 3, and I have to sub those in to the linear equation, and that's it done there. So my two answers would be 4 minus 1 and 6 minus 3.